Well, thank you very much, Danielle, and thanks to all of you for taking time out of your busy lives to be with us once again this year. Some new faces, some familiar faces, and it really is an exciting time as we kick off the new year for everyone. And I have to tell you that this year has been one of the smoothest opening of schools that I can recall, and that's thanks to the hard work of the people that are in this room and throughout the district. I wanted to take a few minutes and give you a couple of just informational items, and I know the strength of this for all of you is the opportunity to network and to talk about opportunities for fundraising and that sort of thing. But we also want to continue to be able to provide information because there's a whole bunch of information out there about schools. And we all have to cipher through, you know, what's accurate, what's inaccurate, how does it really affect not just the district, but more importantly, how does it affect your school? How does it affect what's happening with your children? What's going on with your child? And what is the overall impact? And so we'll try to give you some high-level things that will have ultimate impact on what's happening in our schools. First thing that we're excited about is, once again, for this year, we're going forward with our Community Engagement Forum. We kicked that off for the first time last year at, I believe it was Cactus High School. And actually several of you helped us with that forum. And this is our opportunity to really reach out to our community and to gather insight and information and the kinds of things that we're doing well, the kinds of things that you'd like us to consider, and how we can continue to improve upon what we do that impacts the children in our schools. I believe you have the information on your tabletops there. This year's forum will be on October 24th at 6:30 at Centennial High School. One of the things, too, that we did rather uniquely last year was that we used technology to assist with this. So if you're not able to actually be there and present, we live streamed it over the internet. We allowed our community to actually be involved through technology with interaction during that, even if they weren't present. And the kinds of things that we'll be asking for feedback upon are the kinds of things that we hope are important to all of you. As a matter of fact, on the website, on the community section of our website currently, there is a survey that we'd like for you to get in, take a look at, and we're asking for topics that would be important to each of you for that community engagement opportunity. School safety, career and college ready, strategic plan, school calendar perhaps. There are a myriad of things that we've talked about at the district level. Our governing board has been engaged in that they've specifically asked for feedback upon. So mark that date in your calendars, take a look at the website, give us some input so we can tailor that event to meet your needs. The other thing that I wanted to mention today, or this evening, is we have a unique opportunity that we've decided we're going to pursue. Some of you may have heard of the Race to the Top, which is a federal initiative that is providing grant opportunities to states as well as to school districts across the country. And after much deliberation, we've decided that we were going to apply for one of the grants through the Race to the Top application process. Short summary, it's a very competitive grant. They're only awarding 25 or 30 districts across the country. The criteria is rigorous, but we believe that the Peoria Unified School District, thanks to the support of you and the hard work of our professionals, is uniquely positioned to be competitive in this grant application. And you might ask, okay, what will this mean for us if we're successful? Well, the dollars that are equivalent to, for a district our size, are in the neighborhood of $30 to $40 million, which are significant, especially in an environment of scarcity. And you certainly all know the kinds of things that we've endured in the district and certainly in public education in Arizona across the country during the last 4 to 5 years. So we're positioning ourselves to apply for that. You may hear something about that on your campuses, and we're hopeful that we're well positioned for that opportunity. The next two items on the agenda have to do with November elections. And you are all pretty familiar with the fact that as a public school entity, we are pretty bound by what we can and can't do. We cannot, as a public district or as a school, involve resources to influence the outcome of elections. And so our purpose this evening will be to provide you with some factual information related to one of the items that will be on the ballot in November, which has to do with a bond election that our governing board has authorized that will go out to our community and ask for them to weigh in on that bond election. I want to have Mr. Finn walk you through some of the information that we have gathered in relationship to this request. After he's finished, I'll take a few minutes and also talk about another initiative that will be appearing on the ballot in November that has to do with Proposition 204. Here again, this is just a factual opportunity for us to share information with you and answer any questions you might have about the potential impact of both of those initiatives on our district. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Finn, who I think you had at the introduction as our Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Finn?
Okay, well, the good news is I have a very short presentation, so hold your applause for that announcement till the end. What I'd like to do is just talk to you briefly about the bond and provide you with some facts. As Dr. Santarelli said, we can't influence an election, but I can certainly provide any facts and answer any questions that you might have outside of how should I vote. So, first of all, if you are not familiar with bonds, bonds are monies that are much different than M&O. We get a lot of questions about the override. Didn't we just get additional monies through the override? The answer to that question is yes, but they are very separate monies and they're used differently and they cannot be intermingled under any circumstances. Generally, they're used to purchase capital items or make capital improvements to existing facilities, such as build or renovate a school or to purchase school buses. Those are two of the most typical examples for the uses of bond monies. We are going out for a $180 million bond. It sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but the needs at our schools right now are significant. We have not received any funding from the SFB in 5 years now. That's pushing $25–30 million. We're not anticipating getting funding from the SFB anytime in the near future. How many people read the paper this morning about funding for schools? Yeah, that's one time that I was not happy that we were number one. Yeah, 21.8% reduction from 2008 to current year, 21.8% reduction in school funding. So it's kind of hard to keep our schools up to date when you got those kind of reductions. The other thing on here is that our projects have to be identified in the voter pamphlet, and the district is legally obligated to spend those monies that fall within those projects identified. So we're going to put this pamphlet out, explain to the voters exactly where we're going to be spending our monies, and then we are legally obligated to spend them within those categories. The biggest expense that we're looking at and the biggest category for the bonds is going to fall with the facilities. And we've broken that out by elementary, high school, and district support facilities. Those total up to about $116 million that we'll be directing towards our facilities. You can see the majority is at the elementary schools because we have so many more elementary schools than we do on the high school side. The one thing that is specifically excluded is the building we call Old Main. That one is specifically excluded in the language that none of the monies will be going towards Old Main. There are monies set aside for new construction that came from a previous bond. It's about $10.4 million. Those monies will remain in that account until there is a need for a new school. Jump back a slide. Remember we said that we're legally obligated to spend those monies where we told the voters we were going to spend them. We told the voters we were going to spend those monies on a new school, and that's where they will sit until we have a need for a new school. But those monies are sitting there if there is a need that comes up in the near future. The next is vehicle expenditures, transportation for our buses. We have a very aging fleet with our yellow fleet. Spent about $18 million on buses over the next 10 years. And our white fleet, those are the passenger vans that sit at the schools to take think golf is a pretty good example. You don't want to take a big yellow bus to transport 8 or 9 kids to a golf meet and burn all that fuel for the big bus. So we have smaller vans that take them around, and then also vehicles on the campus, such as pickup trucks, things like that, to move things around. So that's about $4.9 million, and question sometimes comes up, where do you get these numbers from? It's a combination of either mileage or years of service on the vehicles. And the last one, and well, certainly not least, it's extremely important obviously for our district, is technology. And on the technology side, we're looking at short-term technology related to access and connectivity, and we're not saying laptops, we're not saying iPads, because we don't know what that's going to look like in the next 10 years. We don't know. I mean, if you think about iPads only coming out about 3 years ago, and kind of what's happened in the past 3 to 4 years in technology, I have no idea what it's going to look like 10 years from now. So we're not being overly specific there, because we want to be able to keep up with the times from the technology side. And then we also have, and those are short term, and by the way, that's extremely important on the tax rates, whether it's short term or long term, because the short term we have to amortize over 5 years as opposed to going up to 20. So it's kind of important on the tax rates for a number of geeks like me. And the last one is a long-term technology related to access and connectivity, and examples of that would be LAN cabling and fiber network. So that is my extremely short presentation on the numbers. A couple of other little notes on it. There's no financial impact to the taxpayers until the bonds are actually sold. So if we go out for $180 million, SFB starts funding again, and we find that we don't need to sell all of those bonds, there's no impact to the taxpayer. We're getting authorization to sell $180 million worth of bonds. If we don't sell them, there's no impact. Another note on there, if all of the bonds are sold, the average homeowner would pay $76.80. That's based on a full cash value of a $120,000 home, which is the average in Peoria right now. That would be about $76.80 per year would be the impact of that $180 million bond. Believe it or not, that's it. That's the last slide. Now you can apply.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. You know, the analogy that I often use when I talk about bond and the need for bond dollars is, as a homeowner, I know that I have to maintain my house, otherwise it'll continue to have difficulty until some point in the future. It becomes very, very expensive to even live in the home. You have air conditioning units that have a life expectancy of 15 to 20 years. You have plumbing, you have all of the things that you have in your home, even basic things like the infrastructure and the flooring and that kind of thing. The numbers that are derived for the bond election actually are not just our numbers. A year or so ago, we had an outside firm come to every one of our campuses in this district and conduct an audit of what it would take to keep our schools safe, what it would take to keep our schools maintained and operational. And each of the facilities in each of your schools, the notebooks are about that thick, with all of the things that are included for us to be able to make sure that our schools are what you would like them to be and what you expect. From that information, that was further prioritized based upon work that our principals have done, actually with site councils on campuses, where that feedback then was looped into this $180 million figure. The overall figure that the external audit produced was $271 million. So you can see that this was pared down significantly based upon the feedback and obviously based upon the pragmatics of what we're dealing with. So we like to, and I like to use that analogy of maintaining a home, maintaining a big business, maintaining a school, even simple things like lighting. You know that the lighting fixtures that are currently in most of our homes and certainly most of our schools, if not all of them, are not even going to be sold in the next year or two because they're going to the high efficient bulbs. And when you change that, it sounds simple, but then you have to go out and do the whole fixture because they won't support it. And so that's another example. I'll give you another real life example before we move on because I don't want to belabor this. But just last week, we had one of our schools, Oakwood. Is Oakwood, anybody from Oakwood here tonight? Doesn't look like it. Maybe they didn't get the word because their phones have been down. Oakwood's, we had a phone failure on that campus last week. 5 days we went without phones on an elementary school campus. And it wasn't because we didn't respond immediately. It was because the phone system in that school was so old that the part that was needed to restore it to full operation could only be found back east, not in a store, but in the back room of a warehouse somewhere, in a device that had already been taken out of another system, and they pulled the parts from that, and it took them that long to get the parts shipped here and installed at Oakwood. So those are the kinds of things when we talk about priorities. We're talking about, in many cases, health and safety issues. One other thing, and then I'll move on. We know that our charge is to prepare all of our students for success after they leave us. This whole college and career readiness. Our measure of success will be how will our students do after they graduate, not just getting them to graduate. And we all know the role that technology plays in our society. We all know the role that technology will play in the future. And so part of this bond also includes technology. Now, does that mean every student's going to have a laptop? Absolutely not. Does that mean that even having half the classrooms across the district with some sort of mobile technology? No. But it does mean that we want to be able to provide connectivity throughout the district, and we want to be able to provide a certain measure of opportunity through the use of technology into the future. Currently, we have over 4,000 computers in this district that are so old that they won't even run Windows 7 or Windows 8. So for those of you that are versed in technology, that kind of gives you a little bit of perspective on the kinds of things that are going on. I could go on and on in relationship to those kinds of things. This bond doesn't address bells and whistles. It addresses the basic things that we think we need to sustain the kinds of things that our community expects of us. Let me segue into another initiative that you'll see on the ballots, and this has to, on the ballot in November, and this has to do with Proposition 204. How many have heard of this 1 cent sales tax? Okay. A little bit of history behind it, and I won't go into all of that, but it will be on the ballot. And just for a little bit of perspective in relationship to this 1 cent sales tax piece, there's been considerable work that's gone on to provide for an extension, if you will, of the 1 cent sales tax that everybody, the voters authorized. It does sunset going into next year. And in round numbers, I'll liken it to the impact on Peoria, similar to in a conservative measure if our override was unsuccessful. And Mr. Finn's got some numbers up here, but generally speaking, those of you that have been around the district know all of the kinds of things that we were looking at if the override was not successful. This particular slide shows that the impact, and this was down at the very bottom, the last bullet, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $26 million. We're wrestling right now with trying to prepare a budget for next year based upon 3 assumptions. The first assumption is if we as a district receive the same funding next year that we received this year, if that's the case, our best estimate is that we'll have to reduce anywhere from $3.5 to $5 million. Here again, this is that last bullet point there. Because in order for us to operate and provide the things we've been providing for the last 2 to 3 years, we've been, in essence, and I'll simplify this because school, all the buckets of money, we've been kind of living on our savings account. So we've been spending more than we're getting for 3 years. The account's dry. So if we get no more money for next year, we're looking at a $3 to $5 million reduction just to survive. Okay, that's assumption A. Okay, so that's part of the guessing game. Assumption B is, okay, let's assume that the Prop 204 is unsuccessful and it does not pass. Well, you see the dollar amount that Mr. Finn has estimated. So now we're in this conversation about reducing next year's budget by up to $26 million. So you can imagine what that would look like. And you know the kinds of things that are discussed. And we've been in this discussion mode now for 4 years or 5 years, each and every year. That's assumption B, if you will. If it doesn't pass, okay, what are we going to do? And by the way, we have been working with a collaboration team over the course of the last month, and that will continue, getting input. So we would have to take that to the board, that prioritized list of, okay, what are we going to do? We already have pretty high class size. We've already spread our special area folks pretty thin. We've already spread assistant principals pretty thin. So we've gone to centralized maintenance and all the things that we've been trying to do, but $26 million is an awful lot. Assumptions C that we're working on, if Prop 204 passes. Okay, so if nothing happens and we get the same funding, $3 to $5 million reduction. If it doesn't pass, we're guesstimating $20 to $26 million reduction. And if it does pass, early estimates are that it could be additional money in the neighborhood of $20 million to Peoria for next year. So all of that is significant when you're talking about a system like Peoria, when you're talking about a state like Arizona. And as Mr. Finn pointed out earlier on, the paper today pointed out that Arizona was number one in the greatest reductions of K-12 education over the last 5 years. So there's not a lot of other places to go. We've cut and carved every efficiency that we can think of. And so the tasks will be difficult if we're talking about, even if we're wrong by the $26 million, even cut that in half and say it's $13 million, that's still a tall order. So we wanted to give you the facts about how this proposition will impact our schools, how it will impact the programs and the district, and then we'll take it from there if you have any questions. I know that kind of takes the wind out of the room, doesn't it? But those are the facts as we know them today. And one of the things that we really want to do is to make sure that you, as our most involved and parents that are doing a lot on our campuses, are aware of the facts. Because there's a lot of stuff out there, and you try to cipher through it. These are the facts and how they impact our district.